Thank you, Ali. I appreciate you, brother. I'm very grateful I met you. My name's John Corboy. I'm a grateful alcoholic. I used to be a hateful alcoholic. And what a beautiful blessing it is to be here with all you beautiful souls. I I remember a few years back, life was very dark for me, and I felt as though there was a dark cloud following me everywhere I went. And my friend Young posts these audio recordings in a group chat every night. And for about a year straight, he posts one every single night. And I never listened to one of them. And one night, one came up, it said Ali H, and it was mental health and depression and recovery was the topic. And something said to me, you better listen to this. And I listened to that talk and I was in tears. And I asked Young, can you please have this man reach out to me? I want to get to know this man. And it was the next day that Ali called me and reached out and told me about this meeting. And I started to attend, and then I got invited to join the team. This wonderful team that always comes together, no matter how thick or thin we are, we make it work. And I feel like I've learned so much from each of you in this room, and I'm very grateful for that. I'm very humbled, and I'd be lying if I said I'm not nervous. I'm human, and I'm no spiritual guru. And the spiritual giants that I look up to and I adore in this program so much that have graced us with their talks. I start to think my humanness starts to say, how are you going to compare? How are you you're going to fall short, And really, I'm just going to speak from the heart tonight. And that's never hurt me. Speaking from the heart has always brought me to a better place. I chose this topic because life has been extremely difficult this past year, but beautiful at the same time. And not just difficult, and I don't mean like poor me or I'm going through things. Everybody I see every day in my work is struggling. My friends and people I care about around me are struggling, all in different ways, whether it be financially or with family or just the challenges that life is throwing their way in. I've been fortunate enough over the years to see so many people get through such tremendously difficult things that I know that anything is possible. And I know that through examples of miracles I've seen in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, in the community work that I've done. And, I feel blessed. There's a guy that says, I feel like Alcoholics Anonymous is a front row seat to a show of miracles. And I feel like that's been my experience. There's a line from a song, my favorite song, it's called Moment of Truth by Gangstar. It's DJ Premier and Guru. And he says, sometimes you gotta dig deep when problems come near. Don't fear, things get severe for everybody, everywhere. Why do bad things happen to good people? It seems that life is just a constant war between good and evil. And that really resonates with me. I think a lot about my childhood and how difficult that was. And my stepson and I just visited my aunt who was like a mother figure to me, who got me out of the environment that I was in, who spent as much time with me as she could, who I would say all of my memories from my childhood that are pure are with her, and she lives a block away from where we are today. She's still a close part of my life. And if I didn't have the childhood I had, I don't know if I would have built the relationship that I built with her that I cherish so much today. I think about, I was reflecting today and just thinking about waking up in my own vomit and having a pound of ground beef to have to split it up for the week to try to feed my son who was a year old, having to go into stores and use the washroom and take one of the toilet papers from the bathroom because I didn't have enough money to buy any to get through the week. And those were the struggles that I had before I got to these rooms. And they helped shape me into a human being today that's able to have the humility to share those experiences when they're relevant with the people that I connect with or cross paths with in my life. And it's given me this ability to have this bottomless pit of compassion for people that are suffering. And I used to walk around suffering, thinking there was no way out and nothing was ever going to change. And I came into these rooms with a plastic bag full of belongings, and that's all I had, sleeping on couches or outside or wherever I could find. And I've got a beautiful home today that we're renting. And, a couple of weeks ago, I wasn't even sure how we were going to make ends meet and pay rent at the end of the month. But I say this to you because I still experience fear, but it doesn't wrap me up in a blanket of misery and depression like it used to. And I have these tools that allow me to unpack things and remain calm in the storms of life. And it allowed me to get uncomfortable enough to not fly under the radar and to reach out to people and let people know where I'm at and what I'm going through and ask for guidance. And little blessings have cropped up just since I started to lean in. My friend Donna J, she says, just lean in. It's not about catching up. It's about catching on. And it's those wise people that have suffered and found a way through the suffering in my life on my path that have given me the strength to be resilient and to know that there's a way out, no matter how dark or dim or hopeless the situation might seem. I don't have to stay stuck in it and stew in it anymore. And I think a lot about when I came in here and I had really no sense of faith in anything. And I was sober my first year and I was still a drug dealer in my first year of recovery. And I saw these people light up with these smiles and this joy and this laughter. And it seemed to be that this program was like a medicine for them. And they had peace of mind and just this bright, beautiful spirit no matter where they went. And I'm thinking to myself, like, why can't I have that? Why don't I have that? But I was walking this path of darkness and veering so much from the sunlight of the spirit that I had just lost my way. And I had no compass or guiding light or anything to really bring me back to that, except this program. And that's where I found it in the people here. I found God in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous from the people that were sitting around the tables before I ever found any type of God in my own understanding that I've been able to build a deeper relationship with. That was where it all started for me. And a meditation the other day, what came to me was that I don't think I ever would have found the light the way that I've been able to embrace it today if it wasn't for the darkness. Because as terrible and awful and hopeless and scary as the darkness can feel, if someone shines a light in the dark, it's a lot easier to see than a light in the sunlight, right? And so for me, why this topic resonated with me is that despite all of the difficult, challenging, heartbreaking things each of us have had to experience in our lives, we've been able to find a deeper relationship with the God of our understanding to bring us this beautiful light that illuminates everything around us and allows us to walk through those things with grace, with humility, with humbleness, with compassion, with care, with nervousness, but knowing that there's hands held out ready for us to hold, and I'm grateful. I thank the Creator for the difficult times and the things that challenge me because I believe those are the things that I learn the most from. That those are the opportunities for me to grow the most. My son and I had a falling out a couple of years ago, and we hadn't spoken in over a year, and he had just come back into my life about 5 or 6 months ago. And he decided to move back home, and he was staying with a friend of mine. And he ended up getting himself in trouble, and he's in jail today awaiting trial for some very serious charges. And I felt like I had just got my son back in my life, and now I lost him again. And I felt just such an intense fear and disappointment. And I'm looking back on my life and all the mistakes I made as a father, thinking, what could I have done differently? They had him in the local jail here, and then they transferred him to another jail in a city 4 hours away. And I immediately wanted to fight, to advocate, to have him back here so that he's closer to me. That's my first human thought is I want my son close. I need him here. I need him here. That's what happens when the humanness in me, tries to take over the spiritual aspect of my life. And we were on the phone one night and he said to me, Dad, I like it here. I'm away from people. I like the environment here. I'm getting into schooling here. They have a really good school system. I'm working on my credits. I actually feel like I'm starting to get some type of routine in my life. And it was at that moment, because I'm awake enough, it was at that moment where I realized that my son needs to be where he is. I don't understand why he's on the path he's on, but I recognize that he needs to walk the path he's on, and I need to stay out of that and just allow him to walk that path. And I reached out to Ali one day, and I was really struggling with accepting all these things that were happening. We lost a baby. Um, just friends, had us move into a house and said we could save our money for a couple of years and buy it, and it's going to be our home. And then a couple months later, they're telling us they're selling it on us, and we have to move when we just got settled in. And now I want to say right here that the problems I have today, I would have killed to have these problems when I walked into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. These are good problems to have. But I reached out and I finally was honest and open. I hadn't told anyone what was going on. No one outside of my wife and my immediate family, not even my mother, nobody knew that this was happening. And Ali suggested, that I say the third step prayer for myself and for my son. And it wasn't even 24 hours later, my son called me and was quoting things out of the Bible, telling me that he picked up a Bible from somebody who came in to do a meeting, and he was reading it again, and he was really comprehending it, and it was really moving him in a way where he recognizes where he's gone wrong in his life, and that he wants to stay on a different path, and that he wants to rebuild himself to be there for the people that he loves, that love him, so he can be a supportive brother and a son. And these are those moments where sometimes I'm expecting like this, like a personal visit from God on my bedside, like tapping my leg, telling me everything's going to be okay. Like a VIP flight, to talk to God, to say like, here's what's going on in my life. Can you fix it all for me? But when I'm straying from the path, I don't notice those beautiful little moments where it's like a candle is being lit along my path. And because of my friend, and because of the people that I've met along this path and the things that they've shared with me, I was able to recognize that as a moment where God is saying, I may not be doing exactly as you wish or the way you wish it was, but I'm here for you. I'm here for your son, and we're going to get through this. And a lot of the difficult things that are happening, I don't understand them at all. Like I grew up in public housing. We had nights where the power was cut off or we didn't have anything to eat. And my children, thank God, have never had to experience any of that. But this financial crisis that I continuously find myself in time and time again, I got to a place where I just felt like my spirit was broken. I didn't feel abandoned by God, but I just felt like my spirit was broken, and I felt so disconnected from the Spirit. And through the people that I know in this program and their suggestions and my willingness to accept them, I've been able to find my way back to where I'd like to be. And now fear and all these things in my life, they may be uncomfortable and I may not understand them, but I know that I can walk through them, and that eventually things are going to be different and they're going to be better and they're going to be okay. And I only know that because I've been around and dove into this program and connected with people and built relationships where they share their vulnerable moments with me, and I see how they recover and how they bounce back when they stumble, and how they're able to navigate, these storms of life with such grace. And I know that it's possible because I've seen miracles come up around me. And I didn't see those when I was out there. And I think, today there was this gentleman who came in and he wanted some grocery cards, and he'd been to the food banks and they have this limit on how many times you can go to the food bank. And I can remember years ago working where I am now. I just returned to the workplace I was at before in social services. And I can remember leaving on my lunch break to go to that same food bank that this gentleman's telling me about. And he's getting impatient and he's saying he's going to leave and he's going to come back in the afternoon. And I'm saying, man, I can't work magic, but I'm trying. Like, I'm trying. Please stay. And he leaves and he says something to me like, I'm not trying to get you to work magic. If I was taken advantage or expected more, I would have been here months ago. And so the old me maybe would have just, whatever, brushed that off. But I thought about that. And I told the people at the front, if that gentleman comes back in, please let me know. And I went out and I approached him and I sat beside him and I talked to him and I said, I want to apologize because the way I communicated to you, it didn't come out the way I intended. And I feel like I may have offended you. But what I was trying to say was I wanted you to stay because I wanted to get somebody to see you and to take care of you. But I recognized it didn't come off that way. And he and I had a conversation about his journey and where it's led him and where he's at today. And I was able to just be awake enough and present enough to notice that I needed to approach him and make an attempt to build a relationship with him. And it really made me reflect and think about something I've learned as a result of making many mistakes on this path. But that although I can have the best of intentions and the most authentic intentions with the people I interact with, sometimes my impact can be really harmful and hurtful to other people around me. And I really need to pay attention to not only my intentions, but what the potential impacts are of the people around me. I don't want to come off as insensitive. I don't want to come off as or be controlling. I don't want people to feel guilty for seeking help. I want them to feel loved. I want them to feel respected. I want them to feel that they matter because they do. And I want them to feel like they're being treated with compassion. Now, these are all things that I've been able to learn as a result of being here with all you beautiful people. And I've said to people before, like, we get these tools and we get this design for living and we have all these spiritual tools at our disposal. And if I'm the best carpenter in the world and I have a toolbox with every tool that I need, but I never open that toolbox, what am I going to build, right? What am I going to create with that? I I spoke the other night and one of the young guys from the recovery home here asked me if I would sponsor him, and the whole time I'm talking, I was last minute. I didn't get a chance to pray or prepare the way that I wished I could, and I just said, God, please speak through me and say something that'll inspire somebody in this room. That's all I care about. And this guy reached out to me after the meeting, and we're gonna have coffee tomorrow, and I think about how blessed I am to have these opportunities where I can get out of myself long enough where I can be useful and care deeply about other people, in the way that people have shown me over the years. I feel like I've learned that the less I care about myself, the more I'm able to be present and show up for other people. I got home after work today and my wife was exhausted and she wanted to take a nap and the laundry's piled up and the dishes are in the sink and the last thing that I want to do is loads of laundry or put laundry away. But these are the things that I'm able to be aware of today to ask myself, what should I do in this situation? What does God want me to do with what's in front of me right now? I don't think God could care less whether I do the laundry or not. I'm just saying, from a perspective of kindness and thoughtfulness, if I approach every person that I interact with in my day with the attitude of how can I be thoughtful? How can I be kind? How can I be compassionate to this person? How can I be an example of a different way of life? If if I'm on my game and I lean in and get God's help and I'm able to be a demonstration of light walking through life. If I'm not, then people are walking on eggshells around me. I'm getting frustrated at things that normally wouldn't bother me. My son's just playing with toys, being silly, and I'm getting frustrated because it's noisy or whatever it may be, and I don't want anybody to have that experience around me, but that's what happens when I start to unravel and I start to get too caught up in myself and my own problems and what's going on in my life. There's a close friend of mine who sponsored me years ago, and we still have a very close relationship, and we hadn't talked in months. And I ended up reaching out to him, and we had a really good conversation. And he's been going through a lot of health stuff with his wife, and she's recovering now. And his kids are having a hard time managing it. One of them is just kind of diving into sports, and the other one is in counseling. And he's trying to run a business, and he's got all these things on his plate. And he asked me, and when I was talking to him, he asked me, "How come you didn't reach out sooner, man?" And he sent me a text the day after we talked, and he said, "I love you, brother, and I don't think when we're going through things, it's the right time to be strangers." And it made me realize how important it is for us to stay connected. Now I feel like I'm veering off topic here, but I guess what I'm trying to paint here is the fact that if it wasn't for the difficult times in my life and the vulnerableness of the people around me that have shared what they've gone through, then I would not have the courage to share what I'm going through or to connect with other people. And I would resort to old ways of thinking and old ways of acting, and who knows where I would be. It's I can't guarantee what's going to happen in my life, and I can't make sense of everything that's happening. But I know from examples of leaders around me that have been seekers, this the sunlight of the spirit, that have taught me that I don't need to understand anything. I just need to experience it. And sometimes that experience is really uncomfortable and terrifying and painful. And I think our pain, we're all going through different things. I think it's relative to the person and their own experiences. And I'm not here to share war stories or compare pain with anyone, but I think that pain impacts us all in different ways, and we're all going through difficult things at different times of our life. But if we can operate from a place of light where we're trying to demonstrate kindness and compassion with the people around us, then I think that anything is possible. I as a result of this meeting, and my connection with Young, I met Donna J. And her and Young and I used to go through this book by Joseph Benner called The Way to the Kingdom. It sparked my interest when I heard her share at this meeting, and she was doing a study with him and his son Isaac, and I asked if I could join, and we started meeting every week, and I'm telling you, I just sit there feeling like I'm not worthy of speaking, because the two of them are just sharing their experiences with me, and I'm just soaking it all up, feeling like the luckiest man on earth, like I won some kind of spiritual lottery or something like that, right? listening to the way that they're sharing what they go through in their life and what the words mean to them. And this book just comes to life. And I'm talking, we sit there for an hour and we go through one page in an hour, sometimes less than that. And it made the intellectual side of me realize that I can't study this. I can't read this book 1,000 times and expect it to be useful information to help other people. But if I can cherish it and soak it up and do my best to live it and be an example of it, then I can use that as something to try to inspire and help other people in my life. And I just think about where I was 10 years ago and just in recovery and struggling and not doing anything to take care of myself and feeling like I wanted to drink again and feeling miserable all the time and losing my cool about everything that was going on and spiraling out of control about every little thing that was going on in my life and people people that were far enough away from me to not notice all these things that were going on were just saying how inspiring it is that I stayed sober for a few years or whatever it was. But I I became as sick as I was before I got here. And I was not concerned with any type of spiritual growth. I was struggling and I was stumbling and I was trying to do it myself and the problems were piling up and the weight of the world felt like it was on my shoulders all the time. And I was taking it out on the people closest to me and I was just becoming this version of myself that I never wanted to be. And I got on my knees one morning and I said, God, I'm going to put a bullet in my head or I'm going to take a drink. Please help me. And I ran into my friend at the fair with the kids that night, and he asked me how I was doing. And I said, I'm doing great, man. Life is good. Things are good. I'm so good, brother. So good to see you. And I hid behind this smile of mine that's gotten me in and out of trouble my whole life. And I wasn't honest with him. And he said, okay, that's great, man. Here's my number. Reach out anytime. And a couple days later, I felt this overwhelming urge to give him a call and be honest with him. And I said, man, I never felt so much like not living in my life. And I said, I'm scared and I'm lost and I don't know what to do. Will you please help me? And we went through the steps together and we went to meetings together and I met new people in recovery and I built these friendships with these beautiful people that dedicate their lives to trying to help other people. And guys were calling me to go on step 12 calls with them. And people were inviting me to their house for dinners and different events in the area and gratitude dinners. And, I was introduced to a priest that I was able to do my first honest step 5 with. And had it not been for those difficult moments that forced me to face my stubbornness and humanness, I don't think I would have been able to grow and become the man that I am today. And I'm so far from perfect. I've ended this meeting short a couple times. And you know what? I got people in my life that hold me accountable in a way that it's kind and it forces me to reflect and think deeply about the way my actions impact other people. And it's not about guilt or shame or any of that. It's just about, I remember I was speaker seeker and I got someone to speak about a step and they spoke about everything but the step. And Ali called the next day and I thought, oh no, Ali's calling me something. And I said, well, this person said that they're going to share on this step. And he said, okay, but have you ever heard this person share on that step before? No, no, I haven't, but those are the moments that I'm talking about, I guess, along my path where I have just had these beautiful teachers in my life that force me to dig deeper beyond the surface, to really connect with my spirit, to really go deep inside and dive deep and look for those pieces inside my soul that are that are hidden or covered up or whatever they may be. And they give me this opportunity to put everything back together and be beautiful again and shine again and illuminate the rooms that I walk into. People tell me today, when I'm doing the right things and I'm making healthy decisions and I'm leaning into the people around me and I'm trying my best to live this program and I'm taking the time to connect with God. Like people tell me that there's a light about me, and I remember being that kid that was scared and broken and confused and angry at the world and I see those guys and those men and women come into these rooms and I see some of them, falter from the path and I see others who stick with it and become these beautiful examples of what recovery is really all about. And what a beautiful blessing that is today to be able to be that, to be accountable, right? Where I can come home and tell my wife how much of an idiot I've been, and really try to make things right with her because I care about the way I act and how I treat people. And I feel that. I feel that almost immediately, even before I act in a way that I know that I shouldn't be acting in the way that I'm acting, but I'm able to catch it now soon enough where I'm really able to own up to things in a way and be held accountable for the things that I've done. And, I was thinking that, last week, Ali, called me to open up the meeting and we have busy lives and young children and all these things going on. And I was thinking today that, when it comes to meditation, if I were to go buy the book and only meditate when things are peaceful and calm and quiet, I would never meditate, because life is beautiful and it's busy and it's chaotic most days. And I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. But what I've realized over the years is that for me, connection to the spirit is more about me being present than me being quiet. And I don't mean that there's not benefits to quiet and stillness and all those things, but for me, what's grown my relationship with God is being present, completely present in the moment. How does God want me to show up here? How does this person need me to show up for them? Do they need me to listen? Do they need me to say something? Do they need a hug? Do they just need to vent what's going on with them? Do they need me to offer a suggestion? These are the questions that I'm able to ask myself when I'm awake and I'm in the moment. I'm just listening right now to the chaos in the house. I'm upstairs trying to find the quietest room I can, and I could hear, the dogs and my son just playing around, and you know, I moved back to the city a year ago to open a nonprofit, and I did street outreach for a year and went pretty much bankrupt out of pocket, and things have been on pause, and that hasn't grown into what I was hoping it would grow into, and I can't make sense of that either. A friend of mine passed away, and at the funeral, I reconnected with Dana, who is now my wife. And we had known each other since high school, and we both moved back to the city around the same time. And, I don't think it's a coincidence that we crossed paths and connected the way we did, but we continued to talk from that day forward and just fell madly in love with one another. And, we got another baby on the way right now. And I've been able to build, a beautiful relationship with her mother and her brother. And, I've been able to get involved locally at the recovery home and the detox. I'm there every week putting a meeting on. And, these are all things that used to be things I said I would never do. And these are all things that are, adding busyness to an already busy life. But I feel so alive and so full of energy when I'm trying to do things for other people. And what a comparison it is than when I'm sitting there and I'm stuck in self and I'm just thinking about all the things that are going wrong in my life that are out of my control that I wish were different. But when I pour myself into other people, I really come alive in a way that I never thought would ever be possible. And I think about how special each of you are that come to this meeting each week and allow this to be a place for us all to learn and grow together. And I don't know what else to say other than I love you all. Thank you for letting me share. Thank you for letting me be here tonight. And I look forward to hearing from you.
John, you just moved me so much. Even before you said that about people said that you had this light coming out of you, I kept thinking, God, you're shining. You shine. And, I'm having a lot of trouble when I'm in a difficult situation asking for help. And you talked about how, nobody outside your immediate family knew you were going through a hard time. And I'd rather eat ground glass than pick up the phone. And I would like you to give me some, help in how I can do that.
Thank you, Sally. That's a really good question. And thank you for being here. I would say that what came to me when you were asking that was that what has helped me the most in my life is thinking back to the moments where people were vulnerable enough with me to share their imperfections. And it was in the meetings early on, especially when people were opening up about what was happening and how messy they handled something, that those were the people that I connected with because I felt like I belonged and it was okay to be human and I didn't have to be ashamed of my mistakes. I would say that I don't think there's any magic solution for dealing with difficult times, but what I have found to be the most helpful for me during those times that encourages someone like me that's stubborn, that isolates, that shuts down to reach out to people is knowing that it's in those moments where I was able to just be an ear for somebody and feel like I had such a purpose and that I mattered enough to them that they share that with me. And that's a beautiful experience that I don't think can be matched by anything else in this life. So I think by you being vulnerable with other people, it gives other people permission and encouragement to do the same. And it may not change your circumstances, but I think you'll notice something when you start to do that. Thank you for your question.
Thank you for the answer, John. Bill Swan, you are up.
Oh, so much, Lord. What a beautiful meeting. You said that something told you to go to that meeting and Ollie was speaking on it and then you want to connect with them. And something told me to come here tonight and I almost reached out to Ollie or Alice to find out who was speaking. I have to say this in humility. If I would have known it was you that was speaking, I wouldn't have come. And it had nothing to do with you. I don't even know you. But I look back and there's some jealousy and some entitlement in my heart. And when you said tonight that you spoke it, you let someone know. I'm letting a whole bunch of people know that I still have alcoholism. It lives in my heart. The interesting thing about it is I found out you were speaking once I got here, but one of my sponsees had asked me where a meeting was on Zoom tonight because he's been sick. And how could I leave with him here, John? So the question is this. How do you keep the channel for something that tells you, that leads you, that guides you? How do you keep that channel open? Does it start by saying, hey, guess what? I'd like to come across as a real spiritual giant. But the fact of the matter is like you described that you were sick of self. I'm sick of self. And then you said this, and now I'll be quiet. Relieve me of the bondage of self, because that's what it is. And I say that to say this in all finality, Alice. It's not just John that I do that to. And because of what goes on in my mind, I miss all these beautiful messages. I don't know if that was a question, John, but it was a confession of the soul.
I love you, Bill. You know, what comes to me when you say that is I'm going to share something with you that's very embarrassing, but I used to record myself in my back pocket at in-person meetings and send the recordings to Young, hoping he would post them on his channel, and then getting resentful when he didn't. That is a sick man.
John,
So
I
if you
love
have
you
done
for that. I love you for that.
and and you know what, what's happened as a result of me just I don't know, Bill. I don't know, other than I've tried to pour myself into other people even when I felt empty, because people told me that's what I need to do to be well. And I don't want to sit with that feeling of how sick I feel when I'm not doing those things. And as a result of that, some beautiful things have happened in my life. So much to the point where Allah sent me this beautiful flyer, which I appreciate the effort that, the person put into in creating, but I don't share those things. I feel like when you live authentically, what's meant for you won't miss you. And maybe you go to the meetings where you hear what you need to hear, or you can be a service in a way that you didn't think you could be. And just by you being up here tonight, being honest with us, I'm sure it helps somebody. So I love you, brother. I don't think things happen by mistake. And I think you're always exactly where you need to be, even when it's not where you want to be.
Thank you, John. I want to confess now, I'm not going to get to all the hands, but I want you all to know that I love you. So, Lana, you are up.
Hi, everyone. Lana, alcoholic. John, there was no way I wasn't going to share. I so identified with your share, and I appreciated your honesty, your humility, and your walk. So beautiful. And I wanted to share one thing that I'm still embarrassed about, that I created a problem when I was out there. I used to run out of toilet paper. So now in recovery with over 36 years, in this household, we never run out. We will never run out of toilet paper. So I am so moved, John, and I love you and I appreciate you. Thank you so much for letting me share, everyone.
Thank you.
Love you too, Leonard.
Come on, Calvin.
Thank you, Olive. Thank you so much. And John, man, oh man, you blew me away, man. I always knew that you had the fire. I could just tell, and I really I don't get it as much as I used to, but I really yearn for it. When people love me enough to push me away from myself. When people love me enough to push me away from myself, to tell me the truth about myself. Not to hurt me, but to push me away from it and to tell me the truth. That's so vital important in this program, John. And when Lana talked about that toilet paper, I'm looking at about a 20 or 30 pack of toilet paper right now. My God. You can't make this crap up. But like I tell you, John, like Lana said and everybody said before me, your humility makes people, they call it an impasse, right? When people can come to a meeting and they can share their innermost feelings with another human being, and it changes the other person. That's profound stuff. And that's what we put here to do for one another. That is exactly what we put here to do for one another. And I'm going to get off now, but I want to tell you about when my son was in deep trouble. It like to rip my heart out. That was the most painful thing I ever been through. To love somebody and you cannot help them. I spent a lot of money and I just couldn't help them. And God had to intervene and take that over, just like he did with you, John. And gave me the same peace he gave you. My God, that's what he wanted from me, to let go. And I let go. Thank you, John. Thank you so much.
Love you, Calvin.
Okay, you're up. Allie, please.
Thanks, Alice. Hi, everybody. Ali Alcoholic. John, there you are. Shine and illuminate you do, my brother. And the light you are, man. You're a light carrier. Remember I told you a while ago, the things you see inside of me is because you have it in spades. The light you are, my brother. Thank you very much. I heard so many good things. One thing, a line of the year for me, the way you said it, I can't remember, something like in a busy life, when life gets busy, my meditation becomes less about being quiet, more about being present. Can you just tell us a little bit about your practice of being present throughout the day, your meditation, how it looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. I love you, brother. Thank you. Um, for me, it's when I wake up in the morning and my pregnant wife says, "Can you take the dogs out?" And I take the dogs out and I watch the way they play together and how the little puppy's learning how to lift up his leg and I look at the trees moving outside and it's the simple little things where the little guy comes downstairs and he turns on the TV and it's blasting some Minecraft show that I can't stand, but I go sit with him and I give him a hug and I tell him I love him and I hope he has a good day at school. And it's those opportunities, to roll over and tell her, I love you and I love waking up next to you. It's realizing how good we have it, even when it seems like we're juggling a million balls at once. But I've been in places where the house is quiet and the house is clean, but my soul is broken and my spirit is empty. And I would much rather have a busy home. And sometimes I go in the bathroom at work and just sit on the toilet in quiet. Hopefully that helps. I love you, brother.
I love you, John. Thank you so much for saying yes. To Kathleen and Michelle, who I was unable to get to this evening, please come back next week for an incredible share. Pat, back to you.
Thank you so much, Alice. Okay, that concludes our Q&A. On behalf of the Fellowship of the Spirit Step 11 Speaker Series,